In a small African village, surrounded by majestic mountains and dense forests, lived a humble family. Kofi, the father, worked hard as a farmer, and Amina, the mother, looked after their home and 3 children. Despite their poverty, they were happy, living off the land. Every morning, Kofi set off to the fields before sunrise, his calloused hands tilling the soil under a sky that was often mercilessly hot. Amina, for her part, prepared meals from the meager harvest, her deft fingers weaving baskets to sell at the local market. One day, when the village was bustling with the weekly market, a mysterious stranger arrived. He wore luxurious clothes, silks, and brocades that no one had ever seen before. His sparkling jewels clanked with every step, attracting curious and envious glances from the villagers. This man, named Baba, sat down under the shade of a large baobab tree and began to talk about his travels and treasures. The villagers, fascinated by his tales, crowded around him. Baba claimed he could make anyone rich beyond their wildest dreams. All he asked in return was one thing: the person had to agree to follow a strange ritual. The murmurs of the crowd grew, and soon Kofi and Amina, lured by the promise of wealth, decided to meet Baba in secret. That night, Kofi and Amina slipped out of their straw house, their hearts pounding with excitement and fear. They found Baba sitting under the baobab tree, an enigmatic smile on his face, illuminated by the flickering light of a lantern. The atmosphere was charged with mystery, the shadows of the baobab's branches dancing on the ground. Baba explained that, to obtain wealth, Kofi had to sleep with a sacred snake every night. Amina, although terrified by the idea, convinced her husband to agree. "Think of our children, Kofi," she said, her eyes glistening with tears. "They'll never have to go hungry or cold again." On the first night of the ritual, Baba handed Kofi a small golden box containing a shiny snake with emerald scales. Kofi, trembling with fear, followed Baba's instructions and lay down with the snake. Strangely, he felt no pain, only a sensation of icy cold that seeped into his bones. The minutes stretched into an eternity, but finally, he stood up, alive and intact. Days passed, and every morning Kofi and Amina found gold, jewels, and silver coins in their house. Their wealth grew at an incredible rate, and soon they were living in a large house with servants at their service. The children wore the finest clothes and went to the best schools. The neighbors looked on enviously, wondering how this family could have grown so rich so quickly. Yet Amina couldn't ignore the worrying signs. Every evening, Kofi returned from the ritual paler and weaker. His eyes, once full of life, were now dull and tired. One day, while playing with his children, Kofi suddenly collapsed, unable to get up for long minutes. Amina, with a heavy heart, looked at him with growing concern. Kofi was growing weaker every day. His hair was graying prematurely, his skin turning pale, and his eyes losing their sparkle. Amina could see her husband wasting away, but the greed and comfort of her new life prevented her from stopping. She told herself that all would be well, that Kofi would soon recover. But every night, she heard him moaning in his sleep, tormented by nightmares. One evening, as she was preparing dinner, Amina heard a thud coming from Kofi's room. She rushed in and found him lying on the floor, his face twisted in pain. "I can't do this anymore, Amina," he whispered, tears running down his hollow cheeks. "I feel my end is near." Amina, in despair and tears, tried to comfort him, but nothing could stop the fate that lay ahead. With a last breath, Kofi said to her, "I've always loved you. Take care of our children." And then, in the silence of the night, he faded away, tight in the snake's icy embrace. The next morning, Amina found Kofi lifeless, the emerald-scaled snake wrapped around his body. His face was pale, but he seemed at peace at last. Amina, shattered by grief, realized too late the terrible price of their wealth. In the days that followed, she tried to get rid of all the precious objects, but nothing could ease her pain. The children, though materially fulfilled, felt their father's absence. They grew up wondering whether wealth was really worth the sacrifice of family happiness. Their home, though sumptuous, seemed empty and cold without Kofi's warm presence. The laughter was gone, replaced by a heavy, oppressive silence. Amina, racked with guilt, spent her days telling the story to her children, hoping they would understand that the pursuit of wealth by a cult means brought only sadness and desolation. She would often take them to the cemetery, where a single stone marked Kofi's grave. "This is where your father rests," she would say. "Never forget that true wealth lies in love and health, not in gold and jewels obtained by sinister means." The children listened attentively, their eyes filled with tears, gradually understanding the gravity of their actions. They vowed never to seek wealth at the expense of their own happiness and integrity. Thus, the wealthy but unhappy family became a cautionary tale for the village. Residents would tell the story of Kofi and Amina to their children, reminding everyone that true wealth lies in love and health, not in gold and jewels obtained by sinister means. Years later, Amina, now elderly and wise, continued to share her story with new generations in the village. She had become a respected figure, known for her wisdom and experience. Villagers often came to consult her, seeking advice for their own lives. Despite the pain and loss she had endured, Amina found comfort in the fact that her story served to teach a valuable lesson. She knew that Kofi had not died in vain, and that his memory lived on through the lessons learned from their tragic quest for wealth. And so, the legend of Kofi and the sacred snake lived on, engraved in the hearts and minds of the villagers, reminding everyone that true wealth can never be bought at the price of the soul.